Hello everybody, welcome to Housing Bubble 2.0 News of the Week, or as I like to call it, another episode of As the Housing Market Turns. Today is the 24th of August, it's a Monday. Most of the news at the latter part of last week centered around the information regarding, I guess you could say, home values, home prices from July sales. So that's pretty much going to be our topic for today, because people are saying life is great and the housing market's recovered and yada yada. I'm sure you can understand our perspective on this. First of all, if you're not already a subscriber, if you could help my channel grow and subscribe, I'd really appreciate that. Thank you. All right, guys, I'm Randy Patrick, your host. Putting the realism back in real estate. That's what I like to do, and we're going to get into it right now because time is a wasting. So funny enough, am I a housing conspiracy theorist? I don't know whether I am or not. Maybe I am, but according to some articles that I'm reading, apparently that's where I should be labeled, okay, or where I should be put in a bucket. All right, guys. So NAR, National Association of Realtors, is, they do their monthly statistical analysis on existing home sales. Basically, what we have here is existing home sales soared at a record pace, 24.7% in July. It's, basically, it jumped 24.7% from June to July. That's a pretty big swing here to a seasonally adjusted rate of 5.86 million in July. The seasonally adjusted rate is based on the pace of sales. They believe that we're going to sell, 5.86 million homes in 2020. All right. Now, this has changed a bit because, a couple months ago, we were down at 3.9 million seasonally adjusted based on the lack of sales. So it kind of swings. It's just a number that, they use to predict the model out, I suppose. But the big information here is that, sales as a whole rose from year to year, 8.7%. And I guess the number one thing that everyone's talking about with respect to housing values and housing prices is the fact, let me go to the next slide here. So we saw that sales rose 24.7%. If we look at the actual dollar value, the median existing home price for all housing types in July was $304,100, up 8.5% from the previous July. That's a pretty good swing if you think about it. It's not quite double digits, but it's a pretty significant amount. July's national price increase marks the 101st straight months of year-over-year home gains. But for the first time ever, the national home prices breached the $300,000 level. So we are in peak home prices. We are in peak home values. It's getting tougher for people to buy. People have a lot of questions. We're going to go through this right now here. So inventory at the end of July totaled 1.5 million units, down from both June of the year and down 21% from a year ago. Unsold inventory sits at a 3.1 month supply at the current sales pace, down from 3.9 months in June and down from 4.2 months in this time last year in July. So that's kind of an issue for us. So we're having increased lack of inventory, which is causing competition, stress in the market, et cetera, et cetera. That's why we're going to see supply and demand, home prices rising to this capacity. There's other reasons as well too, but basically I want to get into it right now. You can see, so that's kind of our highlights right now. So obviously this is what they produce. You can see the big jump. What I meant about the existing home sales seasonally adjusted annual rate, you can see that in kind of April, May. Look at how far the line went down. All right, that's big time there. So that's based on the sales volume and activity. In May, projecting out would be 3.9 million, under 4 million. Now with sales jumping the past couple months, now they're predicting 5.86 million. So, again, you can see how the lines can change based on sales activity. Typically, what we've always seen is 5 to 5.5 million sales on an annual basis going on existing homes for the past few years. Okay, next slide here. What do we got? Let me just click it up here. Hang on, give me a second. You got to click it right on here. Anyway, the median price of existing home sales, as you can see, has been slowly rising. Little peaks and valleys, but realize that each time there's a valley, it's still increasing. So even there's a little drop in price, you can see that the net result from 2016 to where we are today, we're rising slowly still. So that's encouraging for people who want to sell. Existing home sales median price percent change year over year. Clearly, we had lower increases in, well, I'll call it the pandemic months, where sales reflected I guess you say contracts during April, March, April, May, and now we look to see May and June had lower year-over-year increases, yet they were still increases. Obviously, in July we've have the biggest increase, I guess you could say percentage-wise for the year 2020, 8.5% year-over-year. So pacing upwards. Now, total existing home sales percent change year-over-year. So clearly we saw, March home sales were slowing down. April, May, and June home sales were actually negative, so they were less than the year before by substantial amounts. And now in July we've had a rebound, as you can see from that chart there. This is the market conditions, things that I like to look at. So first-time home buyers, we're back in the market. Comparatively speaking, the dark bar on the left, the dark purple, is the current July 2020. The lighter purple is July 2019. You can see the first-time home buyers were up a little bit, 34% of the market. Sales to investors actually jumped up, funny enough, to 15% from 11%. Cash sales were down, interestingly enough, and distressed sales were down as well too. It was tracking at about 3% the previous month. It was 2% this time last year and 1% right now. So what does that mean? Well, I can tell you right now, distressed sales are made up of short sales and REO foreclosure sales. REO foreclosure sales are homes that were foreclosed upon by the lender and put back in the market by the lender. And because of the foreclosure moratoriums that were put in place sort of the middle towards third week of March, there's been a complete decrease in that activity. Lots of homes are available to be foreclosed on, and it will come. Right now, though, it's not available because they're not foreclosing. So therefore, homes aren't coming back on the market to add to that distressed element. Therefore, that's why you have less than 1%. So that's pretty interesting and pretty telling. There's not much going on in that marketplace, but what I always say is that's where the biggest opportunity is with respect to purchasing real estate. We'll talk about that in a second. All right, existing home sales by region. You can see the South always has the most sales, 44%, the Midwest at 24%, the West at 21%, the Northeast rounding out at 11%. All right, so whether that's a population demographic shifting or lack of sales, but it always kind of runs, that sort of pie chart shape. But the Northeast I think is hurting with respect to people leaving a lot of cities up there. All right, housing supply at national level. You got three lines there. The green line, which is larger, is the condo and co-ops. The red line is single-family homes. The blue line is the blended. So you can see how inventory was a little bit higher, a couple months ago, and we've come down to just over 3 months worth of inventory on a whole for the marketplace in July. A balanced inventory is 6 to 7 months worth of inventory. What they mean by that is if no other homes came on the marketplace, and these are all the homes we had to purchase, they would all be gone in 3 months. So you have to have, obviously, homes are selling every month, the homes should be coming in the market every month. Problem is we don't have homes coming on the market every month. So that's why the inventory keeps getting smaller and smaller. All right, sales by price range. You can see that the 250 to 500K sweet spot, that's where everyone seems to be buying, was 41% of the sales. 100 to 250K, 33%. Obviously, when you look at the 0 to 100K, 6%, there's just not that many smaller, cheaper houses out there. Obviously, 500 and above, 12%, 750 to a million, 4%, and a million above, 4% as well too. So clearly, most of the deals are being done in that 250 to 500K range, which is kind of average for most of the country. All right, percent change in sales from a year ago by price range. So again, we can see that the lower end homes are doing less sales compared to a year ago just because there's that's where the inventory is hurting in that marketplace right now. So we have almost 10% less sales in that range the year before. basically just under, zero, just a little bit negative for the 150 to 250K. But you can see that, look at where they're spiking up. It's the higher end homes that are seeing a greater change in sales. Now, is this because people relocating, leaving the cities, moving out of the urban areas to other locations? Is this people, going from, New York, New Jersey, Connecticut to Florida? Like, we don't know how that all works out here, but you can see that, a lot of the, typically you would not see the 500, 750, and $1 million segments increase that much. So there's obviously something going on with respect to people in the housing market. Now, just the regional sales price by existing homes, when you sort of break it down here, the percent change in sales from a year ago, that's the number, that's the top box here. You can see that, on the bottom, the top box, the bottom bar across, US 9.9, for the 100K, you can just see where percent sales are losing and where they're gaining. The sales distribution, same thing. You can take a look at the regions and where the segments are. So it looks like, if you take a look at the, I guess you could say sales distribution 1 million above, the West had a lot of sales in the 1 million above. And again, is that people leaving and going elsewhere? We don't know, from California, or just, again, it's more expensive in the West Coast property. So tough to peg down what it is, but you can just see how it's distributed. And then we look at percent change in inventory by price from a year ago. So we can see that, looking across the board here, the 0 to 100K, we're losing, 32% less inventory. 100K, to 250, 23% less. 250 to 500K, 14% less. And then you can see the higher ends are less than double digits. But so every market segment, or I guess you could say value segment, has less inventory, but you can certainly tell the more affordable housing is hurt the most, and that's where people need to buy. That's why the market is getting is very competitive in those two segments for sure. I can see that every day down here where I live. All right, so that's kind of NAR. So again, if we want to summarize NAR, seasonally adjusted 5.86 million, new record for median house price, low record again for amount of inventory. So when I said the first part of the slideshow here with respect to am I a housing conspiracist, are existing home sales showing a housing bubble? So clearly, when I look at all the articles that are out there, there's pro, I guess you could say housing bulls and housing bears, for lack of better words, right? So the bulls are saying everything is great out there, that things are growing, that we're not going to have a housing bubble situation. Why? Because certain elements exist and that's not going to cause problems. And then you have the other people, kind of like myself, that are more pro housing crash, just because things are unsustainable. And that's sort of what I look at. I go, what, we can have all this unaffordability, but there is going to come a point in time when the market gets tapped out. So in this article, the guy's name is Logan. It looks like, I don't know how to pronounce his last name, Logan Motashami. He writes, and he's always featured here on Housing Wire. I don't know him personally. I've never spoken to him. He's a pro-housing guy, and he basically is calling out people like myself and other channels saying that we're housing conspiracists, which is fine. His article says, today, existing home sales blew out the estimates, coming in at 5.86 mil, seasonally adjusted. With new home sales, pending home sales, housing starts, housing permits and applications already in a V-shaped recovery mode. This last metric completes the V-shaped recovery across the board for housing. So his perspective is, hey man, we had a dip and we're back up and everything is good. Go buy a house and keep the machine rolling here. Let's just say that this is the final nail in the coffin for the housing bear troll camps that were so sure that this time housing would finally crash. COVID didn't get the housing market, but it did pull a fast one on those pesky bears. So basically he's saying we're full of crap, which is, whatever. You're entitled to your own opinion, which I get. All right. Interesting enough, though, look, I get it. For the casual observer, it says, having said all that, housing is still down about 5% compared to last year. So, okay, we're up. We're not like where it was. While sales, I guess you could say, are and will stay elevated compared to the COVID-19 lows, the market is not bubbly. This is evident if one compares the purchase application data from the overheating market of 2002 to 2005 to the period between 2012 and 2020. Going forward, we don't need 20% plus growth in purchase applications in a year-over-year basis to hold the gains. We just need flat to positive growth in order to maintain our recovery. We have a lot of high-velocity data in our economy, so any short-term pullback on housing data, take it in context. So he's basically saying, all the stuff that we see that happened a few months ago really is irrelevant and gets wiped out now because, it's housing so strong, right? The current existing home sales report does show price growth getting hotter. I'm not extremely worried about this just yet for two reasons. First, the rate of growth in no way compares to what we had during the bubble years of 2002, 2005. And second, we don't have a consumer credit bubble in the housing market or in the general economy. Real demand growth is limited because lending standards are back to their normal liberal standards, which takes away speculation buying on bad debt structures. However, home price growth is a developing story that we'll need to keep an eye on because we are pushing the limits of per capita income and home prices. This is why I'm always rooting for negative real home price growth this decade. So I'm kind of going, okay, we're bubbling, and I don't know what the guy's sort of position is here. Like, he's basically saying he wants to root for negative home price growth, which means decrease in home prices to make it more affordable. However, he's basically saying that we're not in a bubble. Well, okay, great. Just because you have purchase applications that are growing and you have home prices that are growing, to me that defines a bubble. All right. Lower interest rates give people larger purchasing power and allow them to overbuy or pay those high prices that sellers want to set. Low inventory creates competition, which pushes prices forward. That's typical bubble theory. Okay, it's bubble theory 101, whereas the market keeps increasing and people don't want to realize that there is a consequence to prices being pushed so far. When we look at Case-Shiller, I'm betting that Case-Shiller comes in this week, probably, last month it was like almost 18% above the last bubble. I'm betting we'll be over 20% above the last bubble. So, I don't know how you want to call it. To me, if this is not a bubble, when we have, and I guess what they're saying is that low inventory. So we don't have a glut of homes, that are speculative, which implies the last bubble. That's what happened, sort of. It's basically saying because of low inventory, we will always have buyers and things won't break or things won't burst. Well, we'll have to see what happens, clearly. Now, one last thought, the AB America is Back model that I introduced in a Housing Wire article in April 7th was looking a lot better than it was back then. If you are one that believes in economic models instead of conspiracy theories, keep following. Okay, well, very nice. Glad he said that. I think, these conspiracy theories are based on, number one, other housing data, and two, looking at what happened back in the last housing crisis, how that played out. So, you can take specific times and say this makes sense, this doesn't make sense, or this was different then than it is now, which I get. Listen, the market's not exactly the same, but the number of elements that are coming together with respect to a housing bubble are certainly present. There's no denying that. You cannot deny that we're not in a bubble. Okay, now, different perspective. So I wanted to show a pro-housing, we're not in a bubble perspective, because you guys know where I sit on this, but this guy writes, Jacob Posey writes for Market Watch, and he's saying things are a little different, which I think is interesting. So again, the housing market's on a sugar high, all right? Home sales are soaring, but is it a good time to buy? Here's what the experts say. So you're going to get a second viewpoint here. So when you look at this, Americans are rushing to buy homes right now, but should you be one of them? Sales of previously owned homes, rose 24.7% in July. National Association of Realtors thinks everything's great. It's a stunning turnaround from just a few months earlier when the coronavirus pandemic caused record-breaking decreases in sales as Americans are staying home to avoid getting sick. And this is the thing that we're seeing now. Like for me, when you see extreme market reactions, to me that's troubling. So we saw extreme decreases, and now we're seeing extreme increases. It's bouncing, it's bouncing big time, right? Like one of those super balls. You hit the pavement hard, it goes way up in the air when you were a kid. To the large extent, the bumper demand for housing is an indication that Americans are aiming to make up for lost time. Many economists believe that what we're seeing now is essentially postponed spring home buying season, which I have to agree, because the biggest months for home sales closings are typically July and August. And the reason for that, as we all know, people are moving, people are adjusting, they want to get their kids registered for school, et cetera, et cetera. They're on vacation, et cetera. There's all these things going on. So July typically is your biggest month, followed by August. Once September hits, I see normally a slowdown in sales activity, and so we'll see what happens here. The housing market's on a sugar high, brought on by government stimulus and pandemic-fueled rush to low-density housing. And he's correct here, because we know that people are going, I don't want to live in a 100-unit or 300-unit apartment complex anymore. We know that I'm not going to renew my lease anymore because I don't want to touch handrails that everybody else has touched, or press elevator buttons, or just be in close proximity to people. So there is a move to leave density, whether it's urban centers, whether you own, you want to sell in the urban, or whether you rent and you're not renewing your lease. There is more activity going towards the suburban and exurb core, almost rural right now. And it's just, we're going to find that's happening. So we probably see a little bit of a push with home sales because of certain things that are sort of, I guess you could say, like, this is an unusual situation we're in. So basically, prospective buyers will be better positioned for success as homeowners if they understand that the sugar high will not last, and make sure the decision to buy is grounded in long-term factors that will affect their ability and willingness to commit to paying down a sizable amount of debt over the next 30 years. All right. So funny enough, the Home Purchase Sentiment Index from Fannie Mae decreased in July. So even though July sales, we had the big rebound in existing home sales, and we had increase in median price, the Home Purchase Sentiment Index, which is done by Fannie Mae, actually decreased in July by almost 2%, as people's views of home buying conditions worsened in tandem with rising coronavirus cases across the country. So very interesting how this all kind of plays out. So it swings and it swings. Here's some of the factors that experts say you need to consider when buying a home. From a financing perspective, buying a home is something that's a no-brainer right now. Record low interest rates are spurring that. So, they're not going to get, the interest rates to remain roughly low for a while. They won't let them get much lower. Mortgage rates have fallen in response to the pandemic and the effect it had on the economy. So if a vaccine or treatment for COVID were to be discovered, rates would likely shoot upward. There's no guarantees. All right, so we're trying to stimulate economy where we're at. There aren't many homes for sale. As the adage goes, you can't buy what's not for sale. There's not much for sale in most parts of the country. Now is a great time to buy because of the low mortgage rates, but a terrible time to buy because of the inventory. So on one hand, great rates. On second hand, you're going to pay more for your home. So are you actually getting a deal? No, your purchasing power is increasing based on low mortgage rates, which allows you to go a little bit bigger or a little more expensive. So buyers are going to face a tough choice right now. Do you lock in a low rate, settle for what's in the market, and wait, or do you wait for your dream home at risky higher mortgage rates in the future, or if you risk that? So it's basically up to you. But if you plan on trading up in a few years, now is a terrible time. If you plan on finding your dream home, better to wait. But if you plan on trading up in a few years, now isn't a terrible time, other than the low inventory, of course. So it depends on what you're looking to do. Competition is driving faster sales and home prices. Higher prices. Tight inventory of homes right now is being met with a large swath of eager buyers. That's a recipe for rising prices and bidding wars. Median homeless prices were up 10.1% year over year, ending August 15th. So list price is also increasing. So as closed transaction sales prices increase, people go, oh, I'm going to list my price higher and see what I can get. So median list prices are up over 10% for the week. That's very interesting. Homes are coming off the market at a rapid pace. Over 2/3 of the homes that sold in July were on the market for less than a month. So people are grabbing them and buying them. Simple as that. It can be challenging for a lot of people, especially first-time home buyers. Again, it's just one of those things where, are you going to wait for prices to fall? If prices fall significantly, inventory rises dramatically. That means the economy is taking a hard turn for the worse, and you may have other priorities than housing. So lots to think about, lots happening right now. It's not easy. I get it for people who are looking to buy a primary home. And also, where you live and lifestyle are important because, again, it boils down to, are you living in a urban center and you want to get out? Are you, and therefore in places like Manhattan, New York area, home prices are dropping from last year. Probably San Francisco as well too. So it depends on what's important to you. Are you able to work from home now? Are you looking at different sizing because of kids and staying home longer or can't go off to college, things like that? So lifestyle and working situations impacting what we're buying, what we're selecting, and that will manifest itself in various locations across the country with respect to where home prices are rising and where home prices will decrease as well too. We're going to see a shift. So that's exactly what my perspective is at. Some locations will start to lose pricing where others will gain, where competition heats up because of the change in buyer needs, essentially, where they want to go. All right, something to sort of tie off the end here with respect to the marketplace. This was put up by a website called Refi Guide. It's a little blurb on the most and least affordable places to buy a home. And interesting enough, obviously they basically say the coronavirus pandemic has upended the real estate market so far in unexpected and varied ways. Record low mortgage rates combined with people spending most of their time at home has caused a boom in home buying in many housing markets despite widespread unemployment. Not only that, but people are moving and considering new locations. Office closures mean that many people are working from home, and some employers have suggested this may be a permanent trend. All these trends are conspiring together to cause people to consider moving to new places across America. So this is just a few charts here, but I thought it was interesting to see where some predictions are with respect to where you could live. So most affordable places to live, and again, their calculation is based on the median household income as a percentage of home prices. So when you look at some of these locations, well, the number one place to live that's affordable seems to be Youngstown, Ohio. So what goes on in Youngstown, Ohio? I don't know. All right, and are there reasons why it's so affordable? Is there economic depression, things like that? So again, that's when you take a look at the most affordable, we were looking at Ohio, Mississippi, Michigan area, Indiana, Illinois, Oklahoma. Alabama, Iowa, Missouri, Texas. Wichita Falls. Again, Ohio, more Illinois, more Ohio. So we can see that there's a lot of locations here that are coming up, and is there a lot of them are in the Midwest, but are there economic reasons for cheaper prices? Obviously something going on there. We all know, especially in Ohio, some of the Rust Belt locations, that a lot of manufacturing is down or has gone away, and therefore the economies are depressed, and that's going to trickle down into home prices, etc. But when you take a look at the most affordable places to buy a home are not coastal areas or big cities, which is kind of obvious. That's you don't have to be a rocket science for that. When we go over here, the least affordable places, so guess what? You got Newport Beach, California, and it's nice there. I mean, if you've ever been to Newport Beach, it's something else, and it's beautiful there in Orange County. But again, look at that, California, Santa Monica, Palo Alto, Berkeley, Santa Barbara, Redwood City. Okay, your top 5, top 6, then Boulder slides in Colorado, San Fran, Daly City, Alhambra, LA, Burbank, Westminster, Mountain View, Inglewood, East LA, Pasadena, Hawthorne, El Monte. So basically, your top 25 most or least affordable places, all but one, are in California, and the only one that's not, that was up there, is Denver. So again, I'm looking down until number 30, which is New York, and then we got Honolulu, more Californians, Bellingham, Washington, more Californians. Oh, Boston's in there now at 45, Miami at 47, Yonkers at 49. So really, 90% of the most or the least affordable places are in California. The rest are going to be in New York, Denver, and Miami. So that's typical. Shouldn't be surprised at that. But interesting to see how they rank them all. Least and most affordable states to buy a home. If I look at the states here, Mississippi is the most affordable state to buy a home. Mississippi, Ohio, Oklahoma, Michigan, Illinois, Indiana, Alabama, Iowa, Missouri, Kansas, Texas, Arkansas, Pennsylvania, Georgia, Wisconsin, Nebraska, Minnesota, North Carolina, Alaska, and Louisiana. That's kind of your setup there. The least affordable, Hawaii, clearly. um, DC, California, Massachusetts, Washington, Oregon, Idaho, Maine, Colorado, Nevada, Montana, New Jersey, Utah, Rhode Island, Mexico, New York, Delaware, Florida, Arizona, North Dakota. So, we can see where, the shift could be going based on the affordability of where you live in the states. So again, median household income as a percentage of home prices, and we know in certain locations, certain states have higher tax bases, and New Jersey, New York's, whatever. I mean, people were leaving prior to the COVID pandemic because of a lot of taxation issues as well too. So again, they're just laying this out here just to kind of reinforces kind of what we know or what we're seeing with respect to where the market's going, where people are leaving and relocating to. Affordability ranking, the top 50 largest housing markets. This is kind of cool here. So let me find it here. Detroit, Detroit, Michigan. I guess that's the best place to go if you want to be at the most affordable location. Cleveland, Oklahoma City, Memphis, Tulsa, Baltimore, Kansas, El Paso. So you work your way down through the states or through these top 50 largest housing markets. Phoenix being, the least, affordability from 1 to 26, as you can see, and then the least affordability is San Francisco, LA, Oakland, New York, Long Beach, Honolulu, San Jose, Boston, working its way all the way down. Some Texas locations, Vegas, Orlando, Tucson, Nashville, Phoenix. So again, this is your 50 largest markets. So when you take a look at this, you can see, we all can look at it and go, okay, this makes sense. I'm assuming, manufacturing in Detroit and Cleveland is down. Oklahoma, not too sure what really goes on there, but clearly stuff happening. Baltimore, we know some of the plights of Baltimore as well. It's just interesting when you see what goes on. So do we expect wealth shift and relocation from these least affordable housing markets? Yes, because we're already seeing it. Where people are going, again, we've seen move to cheaper locations inland where their buying power is greater if they're cashing out in the more expensive locations, going to other locations where they can buy property. It's cheaper than what they're used to, but they can pay cash or they can bid up prices to get that property. Still a good deal for them. Also, we'll see people leaving high tax locations, unstable markets based on what's been going on lately, etc. We're going to see some of that play out as well too. So this really is kind of it. So summary today, lots happening out there. We're hitting record prices, median price with existing home sales. We're going to start seeing where people are going to leave. Different spins on, are we on a housing sugar high, or are we going to continue just sort of muddling along and everything is good? It's really interesting to see how polarizing perspective can be depending on where you sit and what you're into with respect to housing. For me, I just like to figure stuff out. I do believe that there's more information supporting a housing bubble, housing crash. Reason being, again, there's only so much that we can take as an economy. And, what he wasn't talking about, at least in the article on the pro no housing bubble side, was the fact that, the IRS, I just saw something today, said the IRS predicts 37 million jobs aren't coming back. All right. And, as COVID, rears its ugly head, again and again in waves and cycles, things are being shut down. So we still have, and we have some of these eviction moratoriums and things starting to unravel now. So, and foreclosure moratoriums unraveling. So that's stuff that's going to happen in the future that will probably drag the market down or make some significant changes. So anyway, having said that, I appreciate everybody's views. I appreciate your likes and comments. Please share the video. Please subscribe if you're not already a subscriber. Contact me for information on housing, buying, selling, particularly investing. Short sales, if you go back to that slide and you saw short sales and REOs were less than 1% of the market, that's something to focus on. If you want more information on that, I suggest you email me, send me your telephone number as well too, so I can text you, and we'll go from there. So everybody, thank you very much, and we'll look forward to talking to you later on in the week.